1999/2000 season. We're only looking at the regular season performances for the players who finished in the top 10 in MVP voting. You know how the tier list works. Let's get started with the 10th place finish, which was Vince Carter. I'm disappointed in where he landed. League voters were not giving him the credit he deserved. He helped the Raptors to the first winning season in franchise history. They were a young and up-and-coming team, and Vince Carter put this team on the map. He was the most exciting player to watch. Every game, he was doing something that you've never seen before, and we haven't really seen since. Aside from that, he had a 50-point game, 2 buzzer beaters against the Clippers and the Celtics, and then a game winner against the Rockets. This was all in a 1-month span. When you think of the 2000 season, you think of Shaq, and then you think of Vince Carter. That has to mean something, even if he wasn't at his peak just yet. I'm putting this in the C row. The 9th place finish was Chris Webber. He had great all-around numbers. 24.5 points, 10.5 rebounds, and 4.6 assists in 2000 is very good. He was one of the best all-around big men. There's one game where he had 26 points, 22 rebounds, 10 assists, 4 blocks, and 3 steals. That's nothing to sneeze at. And remember, the Kings were one of the most fun teams to watch, and C. Webb was a big reason why, thanks to his versatility. However, the Kings finish in 8th place in the West, and when Chris faced his biggest rivals, he was usually on the losing end. When facing against Garnett, Duncan, Malone, and Rasheed Wallace, he went 4-11, and he had some pretty bad shooting games. That kind of gives us an idea of where he fell in the pecking order. He still had a little more to go to reach his peak. So I'm going to put this in the D row. The 8th place finish was Grant Hill. This was his last great season before injuries just ruined his career. And I believe this was his second best year of his career behind 1997. And remember, this was a different time. For someone to average over 25 points, 6 rebounds, and 5 assists per game was something that only the upper echelon of all-around players would do. And it was his career high in points. He was able to accomplish that because he improved tremendously with his outside shooting. He was hitting about 46% from shots 16 feet and out, which is good. He addressed some of his weaknesses. That allowed the Pistons to finish with the second best offense in the league. But they only finished one game over 500, and they blew a lot of fourth quarter leads. They were also a rough defensive team. So that will hinder his rankings a bit here, but he was still one of the top individual talents in the game. So I think putting this in the C row is fair. The 7th place finish was Allen Iverson, and he was the only player to have a first place vote other than Shaq. So there's that. But this was a rather eventful season for AI. He was in a lot of trade rumors. He was lashing out with his coach Larry Brown. He got suspended for missing practice.
We talking about practice.
And he would shoot his team out of games. And yet, the Sixers finished with 49 wins. Everyone agreed that they wouldn't be anywhere without him. He was carrying this team. And he had some great highs as well. He had a 50-point game and 7 other 40-point games. I think he was the biggest enigma for the media. He was everything that you don't want in a superstar. And his team was still winning. He was doing something right. So we're going to go in the middle and put this season in the C row. The 6th place finish was Gary Payton. I couldn't believe that they snubbed him from the top 5. What he was doing that year was the stuff of legends. Averaging over 24 points, 8.5 assists, and 6 rebounds per game is very impressive. The only point guards who have done this are Oscar Robertson, Russell Westbrook, and Luka Doncic. After this season, we'll be adding Cade Cunningham to that list. But the difference between all of them is that Gary was also shutting down the other team's best perimeter player. By all accounts, this was his greatest season. He posted his career high in points, rebounds, and various advanced metrics. To say that from a top 10 point guard of all time should hold some weight. It's a shame that this team wasn't in a position to contend. They were in a weird place where they were both too old and too young. A lot of the players in the 1998 team that won over 60 games were gone, which put them in a semi-rebuilding mode. Nonetheless, it was a very impressive season. So we're going to officially put this in the B row. Put us hovering in the A row. It's so close, but not quite there. Now we move to the top 5, and we have Timmy Duncan. And this is one of the best statistical seasons from the greatest power forward of all time. It features his 3rd highest points per game and rebounds per game average. He had to carry a heavier load on offense, with Sean Elliott missing a huge chunk of the year. He received a kidney transplant and was never really the same player. Averaging 23 points, nearly 12.5 rebounds, and over 2 blocks per game shouldn't be dismissed. But I feel like he could have done more. He just came off a championship. He's 23 years old. And this was a golden opportunity to showcase what you can do. Because the Spurs needed it. They won 53 games, which is low to their standards. And it seemed like everyone quickly moved on to the Lakers and the Blazers. And we all just forgot about Duncan, which more often than not usually happened with him. We're not going to disrespect the big fundamental, but I think putting this in the B row is appropriate. The 4th place finish was Karl Malone. He was 36 years old, and he was legitimately in the conversation for the best power forward in the league. And as you can see, he finished above Duncan. He played all 82 games. He averaged over 25 points per game, which was 5th in the league. He also finished 2nd in win shares, PER, and box plus minus. It was incredible. Do you realize that the average age for their starting lineup was 35? This team lacked youth and athleticism. They had no one else to average over 15 points. Despite all of that, they finished with the 3rd best record in the West. He was too smart, and he was still too big and too strong for most front lines. For him to be doing that at that age is a testament to his greatness. It wasn't anything groundbreaking, but the context of everything makes this impressive. Putting this in the B row is very deserving. The 3rd place finish was Alonzo Mourning. If anything, this shows what we value in a player during this time. The big man was the most important player for any team. If you had a decent to great big man, you had a chance to win. You needed someone who can score 20 points, rebound, and protect the rim. Alonzo checked all those boxes. But to be fair, the Miami Heat did suffer many injuries from key players. Think of Tim Hardaway, Vashawn Leonard, and Dan Marley. They missed a combined 72 games. And they still managed to have the 2nd best record in the East. So he held his team down. And he led the league in blocks with a 3.7 average. Those numbers allow him to win the Defensive Player of the Year award. Zoe had a great season. We're not taking anything away from him. There's just a talent gap between him and the Duncans and the Garnetts and the Malones of the world. And I think we all knew this. So we're going to be fair, and we're going to put this in the C row. The 2nd place finish was Kevin Garnett, and he had a great season. You probably forgot this, but people weren't expecting much from this team. They lost Stephon Marbury in the previous year, and they finished with a .500 win percentage. Before the start of this season, they had projected to win 43 games, and they had the same preseason odds as the Cavaliers and the New Jersey Nets, 2 teams that didn't even reach the playoffs. Fast forward to April, and KG carried them to their first 50-win season in franchise history. His defense, intensity, all-around play, and leadership were tremendous. He was also the first player since Charles Barkley to average over 20 points, 10 rebounds, and 5 assists in a season. And he had 2 game winners. This was arguably a top 3 season from Kevin Garnett. Finishing in 2nd place in MVP voting was very deserving. However, was it enough to say that he was in another level than Tim Duncan and Karl Malone? I wouldn't go that far. I think they were in the same class that season. So we're going to put this in the B row along with those legendary power forwards. And of course, we have Shaquille O'Neal. This is Shaq at his peak. He was in the best shape of his life. He averaged 40 minutes per game. In those 40 minutes, we have never seen anyone as assertive, as powerful, and as unstoppable as him. Well, all he did was dunk. Actually, 24% of his field goals were dunks. So there's that. The Lakers won 67 games. Only 13 teams have ever won over 67 games. Well, he had Kobe. Yeah, he missed the first 15 games of the season, and they went 11-4 without him. Well, he was never a great defender. You couldn't say that about him that season. He finished first in defensive win shares, second in rebounds, second in defensive rating, and third in blocks. That led the Lakers to finish first in defensive rating in opponents' field goal percentage. This means that he had a legitimate case to winning the MVP, Defensive Player of the Year, scoring title, All-Star Game MVP, and Finals MVP in the same season. It's as perfect as you can get. This is unquestionably going to the S row, and the S is for standard. This is a standard going forward if you want to be up there. So that's the 2000 season. A lot of legendary players having great years. This was a fun season to watch in real time, and it was a perfect way to start the new decade. Well, that's it for this video. What do you agree or disagree with? How would you arrange the tier list for the top 10 MVP vote getters? Let me know down below. Till next time.